Hi, everyone. This is Kirsten with Pointe Publishing, and today we are here with Kathryn Sullivan. She is one of our newest authors, and we are going to get to know her. And as you know, if you've been watching any of these before, that this is a scripted reality show. She already knows the answers because, well, she picked out the questions. We make it easy around here. Anyway, all right, so we're going to get going. Kathryn, do you want to say hi to everyone in YouTube land and internet world?
Everyone in the YouTube land, in internet world, and assorted masses out there.
All right, she's got about 5 or 6 questions, and then I added a couple more to it, so we're just going to surprise her. It's going to be fun. Anyway, all right, so first of all, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I write young adult fantasy and kind of more middle grade science fiction and fantasy. I've done some Doctor Who short stories. I've done some reviews of various TV shows for other anthologies, and a couple short stories available on the web. I grew up in the Chicago suburbs and then moved to Minnesota 1978 because I had a job at Winona State University as a university librarian. And I started writing when I was young and decided to become a librarian because that way I could guarantee one of my books would end up in the library. High school planning, hey.
Kind of
it worked. And the nice thing about being a university librarian for so many years, I could research everything. I could keep up on the current news and get ideas from newspaper stories I read or articles I was reading for other departments. And when at that time I was still writing, still sending stuff out, still attending conventions. But when I retired, hey, I had more time for writing and going to science fiction conventions and doing all sorts of fun stuff. Mm-hmm. And if you hear a squeaking noise, it's my bird. Sorry.
Well, all right. So you pointed out the scarf behind you. What science convention did you just go to?
I just got back from Gallifrey 1, which is the annual science fiction convention in LA. It's a Doctor Who convention where they bring over actors, behind the scenes people, writers, and it's just fun to hang out and geek about Doctor Who.
Well, yeah.
The scarf is the 4th Doctor scarf, but I mean, the newest Doctor is a woman, and it's been really great having this whole, they had some of the companions for the new Doctor along, as well as the fugitive Doctors, and it's just, it was just wonderful.
That's pretty cool. Well, who babysits the bird when you got to tell us about your bird? Oh, and I don't know the name.
She's Bela. She's a Moroccan cockatoo. Her previous owners named her after Bela Bartov, and it's like, and then they found out it was a she, and then they adopted her out. And they told me when I adopted her that she didn't talk. Well, on the drive from St. Paul back to Winona, I heard this little voice going, hello, hello. They'd had 4 other birds in the house, and I didn't realize that she talked. And I ended up keeping her name because she knew it. She would say it very loudly. But I changed the spelling to B-A-Y-L-A instead of Bela Bartov, which was because she knew her name. Mm-hmm. I have a bird sitter who comes in. She basically comes in the mornings and uncovers her and feeds her, and then comes back at night to cover up because Bela has her strict routine. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you don't have her, if she wants to go to bed and you don't have her cage cover on, the lights are off, the blinds closed, the door to the bird room closed, she screams very loudly, which was one of the reasons why our previous owners got rid of her, because she screams. Well, once I figured out she only screams when she wants her bedtime. Otherwise, she's very well behaved. What you doing? I don't know. Behaves herself sometimes on Zoom call, but she's not today because she would be right in the camera today. Oh yeah.
Well, when you sent over your whole list of all the different places you go throughout the year, I'm like, I'm pretty sure she has a bird. And I used to have a cockatiel, and I've had lots of parakeets, and even then, they had a whole regiment. I mean, they have a schedule, and I'm thinking, I know that your bird was bigger than all the little parakeets and cockatiels I ever had, and I know I think the larger they get, the more demanding of their schedule. And
Mhm.
I was like, who in the world babysits the bird when you are like jet setting everywhere?
Yeah. I used to have the neighbors come over, and then she figured out their weaknesses. Like she'd stand on the back of the cage and I go back in. She
Hmm.
basically intimidated. The bird sitter knows her little quirks
Okay.
and spoils her rotten. So I come back, it's like, oh gosh, I can tell. How many almonds did you give her?
Hmm. Well, all right. So that's a little bit about you and Bela. So now I know. All right. What do you read for pleasure?
I read science fiction and fantasy. I read middle grade fantasy and science fiction because I'd like to keep up on what's going on, whose techniques. And there are some select mystery authors I will follow. They usually have to be funny. They usually have to have some science fiction elements in there, like Donna Andrews, who usually has references to TV shows, and Sophie Kelly, who has magical cats, one which can walk through doors and the other one can basically turn invisible. It's like little magical effects. I will follow it.
Hmm.
But mostly science fiction and fantasy, and it's my dad's fault.
Well, I was going to ask you, how did you get into that YA genre science fiction? Well, you just said it, probably your dad.
Yeah, it's basic. Well, and also partly my mom. When I was first, mom would read to us every night, and my younger sister, she's 2.5 years younger than me, and mom read. She had the original collection of the Oz books. We're talking the original artwork,
Yeah.
and she was reading one night, and Rose kept interrupting and didn't want to follow, and I wanted to find out what was happening, so I started reading on my own.
Hmm.
And then I found my dad's science fiction collection, and I'd already read my brothers and sisters, Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, Judy Bolton, Trixie Belton, and those were all great. And then I found my dad's science fiction collection. It's like, yes, this is my people, my stuff.
Well, very cool. All right. Well, okay, this leads into then what TV shows and films do you like?
Okay. Um, Obviously science fiction and fantasy, but I'm kind of selected. Like Doctor Who, I've been following since the 80s when they were aired in PBS, and I've
Mhm.
been following when it came back. Yay.
Mhm.
Um, and they've got so many great aliens on the show. I mean, yes, I grew up watching Star Trek because my dad got our first color TV set just so we could watch Star Trek, the first episode together. That's my
Mhm.
dad. Um, but science fiction shows, mainly still Doctor Who, but I'm also following some Portal Fantasies because I write Portal Fantasies. So on the Disney Channel, they've got the Owl House and Amphibia, which is
Mhm.
great stories, wonderful artwork. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't stream, so there's a lot of the streaming shows is like, okay, get it on DVD and I can see it. But right now it's like, I'll wait until they come on DVD.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay, so two-part, well, three-part, 2.5 parts. What? Okay,
Who's counting?
whatever. All right. When and why did you begin writing, and what inspired you to write your first book?
Okay. Um, I was 14. We were at our summer cottage. It was raining, so I couldn't go to the library. I read all the science fiction books in the cottage, and I decided I could do my own writing. I could write these stories. Dragged out my dad's typewriter and started typing. What inspired me to do? Okay, I was influenced by a lot of the science fiction and fantasy I was reading. So yeah, Tolkien, you can see a lot of influence of Tolkien, Lord of the Rings. You can see some influence of James Smith's intergalactic agents. But what inspired me and what inspired a lot of the other women authors of my age, because I've been on science fiction panels with them at conventions, and we all seem to be sharing the same story. The science fiction and fantasy stories of the 50s and 60s did not have a lot of female characters.
No.
Women were the trophy. They were the reward at the end of the quest. There were women writing science fiction at the time, but they were still stuck in the man is a male character. He's going to be the storyline. And a lot of the other women authors of my generation are all doing, okay, we're going to do a science fiction story, but we're going to have a woman be the main character or a girl be the main character. And that's what kind of, so the first couple of stories I was writing was, I had a girl who was an intergalactic agent. I had a girl who discovered a telepathic dog, went on adventures with it. And we just wanted to have women having an equal voice. And it's been wonderful watching all these other women authors having the same idea at the same time. We were all going, I have one short story where my girl who wants to be a wizard is being told that you can't be a wizard, you're a girl. I was like, excuse me, wait a minute. So that's what inspired me. I was reacting to so many of these. They were good science fiction stories, but where were the women?
Exactly.
Of course, the book I'm having published with you has a boy. I do write male heroes occasionally, but
okay, because I was gonna say it could go from Michael to Michaela.
well, it could, or it could be a descendant of Michael who inherits what happens. But Michael and the Elf is basically because at that time, way back when I first started writing that story, I even looked up the date and found out how long ago it was. I had just 2 nephews at that time, and the younger of the 2, poor Brian, he keeps hearing this story all the time. He's a grown man now, but he kept his ears reminded me of elves. And I just started thinking about my other nephew could be running around the yard and suddenly come across something in the flower garden. That's how stories come about. You say, well, what if? And
oh yeah. And you mentioned the typewriter. Gosh,
it was a manual typewriter too.
Oh, okay. Because I don't think I've ever typed on one of those, but about 2 days ago, for whatever reason, that distinct smell of an electric typewriter, it just popped into my head. I'm like, why in the world am I and just the whirring, and that hot typewriter smell.
And the smell of a liquid eraser too. Yeah.
It what?
The smell of liquid eraser too.
Yeah. Just okay.
Yeah.
And trying, and leaning over and doing the brush strokes and
just right. And then finding out to put the carbon paper in backwards.
Oh yeah. I don't know why in the world that popped into my head, but even now talking about it, you can just feel the heat, off of it. I can feel it. I can smell. Tells you how often I was sitting behind the typewriter and then of course, I personally in high school, my parents finally gave me a brother typewriter, which I think had the carriage would go back automatically. But my mom had an older one from the, oh my God, late 50s, early 60s that came into a case where if you swung it, you could take someone's block off easily. And that's, of course, if you can lift it up and get it to going. But it had that arm that went back, and it was like a light blue. Okay, I can see why Tom Hanks probably, he collects typewriters, and I can see why, because I don't know. It's weird. Okay. And there'll probably not be a future story about typewriters or something. I don't know. And they're just random little things that ever. So yeah, the different things that have stories just pop into your mind. Now I should ask you, do you come up with a good title and then match a story to it, or do you do a story and then you finish it off with the title?
Do the story first, because somewhere in there will be a line that'll be the perfect title. Same thing with the names. I will be writing along, I have no idea who the name is. I'll just keep going, and then yes, character's gonna be named this. But of course, with Michael and the Elves, I already had the character names.
Exactly. Well, the name thing isn't so much a thing for me, but I come across various little things or different ideas pop in my head, and I come up with a title. I'm like, now I got to come up with a story. And I go backwards, put the carriage in front of the horse or however, whatever. And then I should have, what?
Inspiration sparks from the weirdest things.
Yes, it does. I should also ask, are you a pantser or a plotter?
Answer.
Yeah.
Every time I plot it, I've tried plotting the story, and my brain basically says, well, you've written it already, and gets up.
Yep. And then you walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a pantser myself, except when I did my memoir, I had so much that I wanted to put on I did plot that out, but everything else was like, yeah, we'll just start typing, see what happens.
We'll see what the characters tell me.
Exactly.
So many plotters basically are locked in their characters will suddenly go, oh, no, sorry, gonna take a vacation,
No, pantsing is a lot more fun. It's just sitting there watching a movie and jotting down everything as it happens. It's like, oh, really?
Is that next? Okay.
All right. Other authors you admire, especially contemporary, and does anyone stand out in particular?
Ooh, right now, because I've been rereading this series over and over as comfort rereads during the pandemic, is Martha Wells and her Murderbot Diaries. Because it's just wonderful getting an idea of a character who is not gendered and looking at humans and going, what is the matter with these people? But I like their soap operas. So I like Murderbot Diaries. Tamara Pierce, because YA fantasy, she has done so much for that. Lady Night series and such. One I would have loved to have met before she died was Janet Kagan, because in science fiction and fantasy, she was really good at establishing the various cultures. Why are people doing things this way? Diane Duane, because she's got the Young Wizard series, and the whole idea of interstellar travel by wizards and the aliens they come across. And if you're going more middle grade, Ursula Vernon, who has she had the Danny Dragon Breath books. She had Harriet the Hamster Princess, and she's redoing all the fairy tales from the point of view of a hamster princess.
Oh, there you go.
It's hysterical. And she also did the Wizard's Guide to Self-Defensive Baking, which is wholly different ideas. So many good stories. And then because I like psi powers, Sharon Lee and Steve Miller's Liaden universe has been always fun because they've got interstellar travel and psychic powers. I'm for that.
Yeah. Oh, that, the YA genre is such a needed, such a desired, and that we're looking at, put it this way, if you ever want to throw some YA stuff our way, we would happily grab it up. This last year, I finally got out and I started doing events, and we have a plethora of children's books, and our full-length adult novels and stuff are finally coming on. And whereas we got, as I explained to other people, whereas we got all the manuscripts at the same time, these full-length novels have 100,000 plus words in them, and the children's books have 200 words in them. So, I mean, we can put out 3 or 4 children's books in the time it takes to do one novel. But I would go to these events. I mean, you've seen our table. You get a 10 or 11 or a 12-year-old or someone come up and they're like, well, what do you have for me? I'm like, well, you can learn your colors, or we have a psychological thriller that'll scare the snot out of you. Which one would you? I mean, we just don't have it. So we have YAs that are finally coming out this year, which I'm really happy. But I would definitely always be for more. And I know that one of our authors, Paula, has read your books. And she really appreciated them. Matter of fact, I think she emailed you. Yep. And then I actually, no worries. I actually bought one of your books at the Mankato show and showed it to Chelsea, who promptly took it and said, okay, thanks, and walked away. I'm like, okay, I'll get to it.
Okay. Hope she liked it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but no, I've heard very good and positive things about all of your books. For the, gosh, I think we probably first met in 2017, 18,
Somewhere around there. Yeah.
somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard good things. So yeah, one of these days people will stop stealing my books and I'll get to read your books and it'll be great fun. Anyhow. But all right, so let's see. Now my couple different questions. Do you have to be like in a specific zone or mood? I mean, can you just sit and write whenever it hits you, or are you I can only write in the afternoon at this time with, do you have to be in the right mood or you can just sit down and jam out?
It kind of depends on when the characters stop talking to me, I'm stuck.
Uh-huh.
I used to have specific times because when I had my day job,
Yeah.
it was early in the morning before I went to work, and then late at night after the birds put themselves to bed, because otherwise they're on me.
Mhm.
Like, it's a little hard to write when somebody's right in your face wanting to be petted.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's more like if I've got an idea and I can shove Bela back in the cage and say, hey, I'm working on this.
Mhm.
Then I can start scribbling things down and transfer it to the laptop whenever I get to it.
Okay.
It kind of depends on the story, because I've got one I've been working on, but I'm kind of stuck at points because I'm not quite sure if I'm doing the right culture, if I should just basically step back. And I want to have the culture with the story though. So it depends.
Well, yeah, I think that's something you're probably just gonna have to. Well, if you're like me, you probably are. Um, where if you leave something out of the story, it's gonna
Yeah,
bother you.
it will be an important part of the story.
Yeah.
And we'll discover that through the next rewrite, going, you should have left that in.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, it'll come back and haunt you. It
Yeah.
just have to do it. All right. Next fun question. Describe your desk.
What desk? Right now, right now I'm up in my writing room, which is where I used to write before I retired. And then I moved downstairs to be with the bird, and that kind of distracts things. So yeah. The desk as I normally use it, as I use it now for Zoom sessions, in front of me, I've got my thesauruses, I've got my baby name books, I've got all my dictionaries of synonyms and different languages. I've got little figurines. I've got little inspirational things, statues of horses, CD player. But I haven't used this in a while because I hear this bird squeaking. I figured I should hang out with her some more. Maybe I should basically stop this and get back to bringing it back up to this room and concentrate on writing.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's. I can only really be in front of my computer. Anything else, I mean, I have a short attention span.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I discovered I could write wherever I moved my laptop to.
Yeah.
That's what I ended up doing. But it's like, for this one, maybe I should just set aside time and come back up here and not have somebody hanging out on me and wanting her to be petted.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that might be just the thing to quiet your mind so you can incorporate that one part back into your story. Yeah. All right. Well, those are all the questions I have. Actually, why don't you say what your website is? Because for everyone, how long have you been writing actually?
Since I was 14, I got short stories finally published in my 20s. And when ebooks finally came out, because the traditional publishers weren't interested, when ebooks finally came out, oh dear.
That would have been
9. I got
90s.
Gary Russell asked me to write a short story for one of the big Finnish anthologies.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I got Crystal Throne published electronically. So yeah, it's been a while.
Mhm. It's been 20, 30 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
And my website is it's KathrynSullivan.com. KATHRYN Sullivan SULLIVAN.com.
Yep. She's got a lot of stuff on that, and she has a lot of books that you should definitely check out. She's starting with us with one republish of a children's book. How long ago did you write that?
I looked it up. First version that I first started sending out
Mhm.
was 1973.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then it got published in the fanzine, and then it got published by Writers the Exchange.
Mhm.
And then since they only did electronic, when Guardian Angel started up and they did paper, it got transferred over to them. Now I'm back with you guys because Guardian
there
Angel
you go.
closed down.
Oh my gosh.
I like this story. I like my nephews, and they
Well-
now have relatives that I can inflict upon too. So
Well,
and
you
look at their Uncle Brian and go, "You hit ears like an elf?"
I read it in a book.
Yeah, that's what it said.
So yeah, I don't know offhand what the timeline is and stuff. I know it's in editing and such, but that is so not my department. We had a sales meeting this morning with myself and some of the sales reps, and Chelsea happened to be on the call, and I pointed out what a good job that Chelsea and her department does, because in reality, all of us sales reps are just the sales monkeys who are like, oh, okay, here's a new book, let's go sell it. I mean, we read it, we're like, okay, we got everything. I mean, because if it wasn't for Chelsea and her department, we wouldn't have anything to sell. So there you go.
Mhm.
All right, and anything else you want to say to anyone out here?
Buy our books.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so for all of you guys, you can find Kathryn along with her regular website, KathrynSullivan.com. You can also find her on our website, which is foxpointepublishing.com, and that's FOXPOINTE publishing.com. You can look under professionals and then scroll down a little bit. You'll find Kathryn, link onto her. I believe I also have your website attached to that page as well. And so definitely check out some of her already published books. And boy, check out her events. She is everywhere and anywhere. If you live near everywhere or anywhere, you could probably go in and see her at all these different events. You have a table, I would assume, selling your books at these places, right?
It depends on the convention, because I mean the Doctor Who convention, no, I was just basically helping out, but I had my books for sale in the dealer's room at somebody else's table. MarsCon, I think I've got a signing at one time. MiniCon, I'll have an author table. And these are all science fiction conventions in Minnesota. It depends on the convention.
Okay. Otherwise, they could email you and say,
yes.
hey, by the way, where do we, okay. You can do that too. And either through her website or through her webpage on our website. Anyway, all right. So I thank you very much for hanging out with us today. Again, you can find all of our books on our retail website. Just shop now. All of them will pop up. I don't know when Kathryn's will pop up, but usually about 75 days in advance, we start pre-selling it and all that good stuff. And other than that, have a lovely day in your neighborhood. And then it'll be even lovelier if you buy one of our books. And then you can read it while you have your lovely day. It's great. I got it all planned out, man. Anyway, all right. Have a good one. See you later. Bye.